The wind blew strongly in the small port town of Charleston, South Carolina, where Maggie was born. She was still very young when her mother, like so many others at the time, succumbed to the Spanish flu, leaving her in the care of her father, James, a tough and determined sailor. All that remained was a chest left by her mother and her father's unwavering determination to teach her to survive. So, Maggie entered the world of the sea, unaware of the destiny awaiting her. James, even while struggling with his grief, knew his daughter needed something beyond mourning. "You're going to learn to be strong, like the ocean we face," he would say, gazing at the sea with hardened but loving eyes. Each morning on deck brought new lessons. As the sun rose, Maggie woke to the sound of waves and the ship's whistle, with the sailors already at their posts. The smell of salt mingled with the breeze, which seemed to whisper the ocean's secrets. James knew the sea would be Maggie's true school, where she would learn the most important lessons of her life. He was becoming not only her guide but also her anchor. Even with the eyes of a child, Maggie looked at her father, understanding deep down that her life would be different from any other child's. James commanded the ship with the firm knowledge of a man who knew the ocean like the back of his hand. For him, each dawn brought a new chance to teach Maggie lessons about respect, courage, and survival. The sailors knew her as Little Maggie, and, amidst laughter and teasing, shared tales of faraway adventures. "You're lucky, little one, to learn from the best captain on these seas," one sailor would say, recounting stories of pirates and exotic islands. Maggie listened intently, absorbing every word. At night, while the crew rested, James shared a special routine with Maggie. He taught her to read and write using the old maps and letters that had survived her mother. By the soft light of a lantern, Maggie gradually developed a unique understanding of reading and writing, as if these words were a hidden treasure. Her father would watch her proudly, smiling gently as he said, "The key to the future is here, in words and in your heart." The days passed, and Maggie grew, used to seeing the world from atop the deck, with the ocean as a constant backdrop. The sea was her home and the crew her family. What was a hard life to many was a grand adventure to her. She felt her mother's spirit beside her, as if the ocean breeze were her mother's way of caressing her face. Maggie knew that, with her father by her side and the sea before her, no obstacle was too great. Life aboard the ship was unlike any other. Maggie knew neither street games nor schools filled with classmates. Her world was the ship, and her friends, the sailors. The ship's crew became her family, made up of people from all over the world, each with stories as fascinating as they were unique. With attentive eyes, she absorbed each tale, each accent as she grew up. To the sailors, Maggie was like a granddaughter, bringing lightness to their long days of hard work. Amidst the waves, she could always count on a comforting hug, advice, or a kind word. James, watching his daughter surrounded by these men who adored her, felt he was giving Maggie a special upbringing. He knew that life at sea came with risks, but he believed the lessons she learned there were priceless. "Maggie, learn from each of them," her father would say, gesturing toward the crew. "These men carry lessons you could never find in a book." For Maggie, this unusual family made the ship feel like home. The sound of the waves mixed with the sailors' voices became music to her ears, a symphony of life. The ship was a different kind of home, with its unique routine, full of challenges and mysteries. Maggie was tasked with small duties, such as organizing ropes or bringing supplies from the storeroom. In doing so, she felt like part of the team, proud of every task she completed. For James, teaching Maggie responsibility and dedication was essential, even for the smallest tasks. "Every detail matters," he would say. "That's how we learn to be great in the little things." In addition to her chores, there were learning moments with her father. Every night, he taught her to read the sky and identify the stars that guided the ship. Maggie was fascinated by constellations and their stories. It was as if each star was a memory left by her mother. And so, while they gazed at the sky, James would tell her tales of the constellations, of sailors who followed those same stars long before them. Maggie listened, imagining an infinite universe beyond the horizon. With each sunset, Maggie felt the sea was transforming her a little more. It was a feeling she could barely express, but it filled her with gratitude and love for the life she led. She knew the sea could be unpredictable and that every wave carried risk, but she felt protected by her father and the crew's presence. With them, she had everything she needed, and so, from sunrise to sunset, Maggie came to understand that her family was the ocean itself. One stormy night, Maggie heard from her father about the mysterious chest her mother had left behind. Carefully guarded, it remained untouched until Maggie was ready to see it. This was her mother's legacy, a way of protecting and preparing her for the future, even from afar. "When you're ready, the chest will be yours," said James. He would always remind her that her mother's true treasure lay in her lessons, not in material possessions. Maggie's curiosity grew stronger with each passing day. She tried to imagine what might be inside, perhaps a treasure map or precious stones like those in the sailors' stories. But her father always said that true value wasn't in gold or silver. What truly mattered were the lessons and knowledge that could change her life. Knowing how to read, Maggie, he'd say, is the key to the world's greatest treasures, and so, she devoted herself even more to reading, eager to finally unlock the secret hidden within the chest. Months passed until, at last, James handed Maggie the chest's key. The emotion she felt as she touched the old object was indescribable. Her heart raced as she thought of what her mother had left behind. When she finally opened it, she found hardbound books, their pages yellowed with time. There was also a journal, where her mother had recorded her experiences and thoughts, each word filled with wisdom and love. As Maggie read the journal, tears streamed down her face. It was as if her mother were beside her, guiding her with every word. She felt a deep love and a unique connection. Through the pages, she learned about the importance of respect, humility, and courage to face life's challenges. Now more than ever, Maggie understood that her mother had prepared her to lead with kindness and wisdom, qualities that these carefully chosen books also taught. The chest had now become her most precious possession. Maggie felt she carried not only her mother's love, but also the responsibility to learn and pass on those teachings. She decided to use the knowledge she'd received to transform her life and help those around her. And so, with a renewed heart, Maggie accepted the challenge of living each day with the same courage and wisdom her mother had left as her legacy. One of the most essential lessons Maggie learned was about the tiger's eye, a skill her father claimed was critical for anyone who wanted to survive at sea. "The tiger's eye sees what no one else can," James would say. He taught Maggie to observe every detail, to notice the subtle signs in the weather and the waves. "The sea is unpredictable, Maggie, but with the tiger's eye, you'll always be one step ahead." This lesson became one of the deepest her father would ever pass on to her. Every day, Maggie worked to refine her tiger's eye. She watched the crew at work, the way the sails moved, and even the patterns of birds in the sky. Every small detail told her something, and over time, she began to predict changes in weather or sense the behavior of the waves. James watched her with pride, seeing in her the same determination and wisdom that her mother once had. The tiger's eye became second nature to Maggie. She understood that a captain must have keen eyes and a vigilant heart, especially when it came to protecting the crew. With each new discovery, Maggie felt herself growing stronger, as if the sea itself was training her to face its greatest challenges. It was as if the ocean was slowly granting her an invisible power. This skill proved invaluable during one of their riskiest journeys. Noticing a sudden change in the bird's behavior and the color of the water, Maggie warned her father about an incoming storm. Trusting his daughter's instinct, James ordered the crew to prepare. When the storm struck, the ship was ready, and everyone made it through safely, all thanks to Maggie's tiger's eye. It was a proud moment for James and a turning point for Maggie. Over time, Maggie understood that the tiger's eye wasn't just a physical skill, but a way of connecting with the world around her. She realized that the sea demanded attention, respect, and, above all, humility. With each new adventure, Maggie strengthened her tiger's eye, becoming a brave young woman prepared to face any storm that life would throw her way. When Maggie turned 16, James began giving her more responsibilities on board. He knew it was time to prepare her for the day she would lead the ship. "You have the heart of a leader, Maggie, but it takes more than desire. You have to learn how to make difficult decisions." With these words, he started teaching her the role of a captain. To protect, guide, and make decisions, sometimes hard ones, for the good of all. One foggy morning, the crew faced an issue with supplies. Someone needed to go to a nearby town for provisions, but the weather was unstable and risky. James handed the decision over to Maggie, who, after considering, decided the ship should wait until the next port where they could restock safely. Initially disappointed, the crew soon realized her choice was the wisest one. Maggie felt the weight of her first big decision and also the trust her father had placed in her. Days later, when her decision to wait proved correct, Maggie felt a wave of satisfaction. "The sea teaches patience, Maggie, and you're showing you've learned it," James told her. Over time, she came to understand that leadership brought responsibility and that her decisions wouldn't always please everyone. Still, it was her duty to steer the ship, even if sacrifices were required. With each successful decision, the crew's trust in Maggie grew stronger. She was becoming not only the captain's daughter but someone they respected and listened to. Crew members started turning to Maggie, seeking advice and even her support in resolving conflicts. For her, this role was a sign that she was on the right path and that leadership was something she was building with each passing day. Gradually, Maggie moved beyond being just an apprentice and began becoming an essential figure on the ship. She felt she was living up to her mother's legacy and meeting her father's expectations. The sea, which had always been her home, now felt like her destiny. Maggie knew she still had much to learn but felt prepared for whatever lay ahead. On a dark, silent night, the wind began to blow in a menacing way. Maggie was on deck when she felt the air grow heavy, as if it were warning her of what was to come. The sailors gazed uneasily at the sky as clouds quickly gathered. James, seasoned in reading the sea, called Maggie to him, looking at her with a serious expression. "Tonight, the sea will test you," he said with a calm that hid deep concern. As the storm unleashed its fury on the ship, Maggie took her position beside her father. The waves grew massive, each one a wall of water threatening to swallow the ship whole. Thunder cracked across the sky, and the wind roared as if challenging every sailor's courage. Maggie's heart raced, but she held her ground, recalling the lessons her father had taught her and the importance of staying focused. James gave her one last instruction before stepping away to coordinate the crew. "Trust your instincts, Maggie. You're ready for this." The crew was terrified, but seeing Maggie in action gave them strength to keep going. She guided the sailors with clarity and confidence, checking the sails, the ropes, and the oars. She felt the weight of responsibility in each order she gave. The storm pummeled the ship, but Maggie stood undeterred. She knew that, now more than ever, her crew depended on her. Amid the chaos, she felt a strange calm, as if she had been born for this. Hours passed until the sea began to settle. The sky, once so stormy, lightened as the first hints of dawn appeared. Exhausted, Maggie looked toward the horizon, feeling a mix of relief and pride. James approached her and placed a hand on her shoulder, saying nothing. Nothing needed to be said. It was acknowledgement of her strength. Maggie knew she had earned the trust of her father and crew in a way she had never imagined. After that day, Maggie was seen not only as talented, but as someone worthy of everyone's respect. The Tigers had helped her pass her first great test, and she knew the sea still held many more challenges. Yet, somehow, she felt ready to face them, confident in herself and in the invisible force that had guided her since childhood. As time passed, Maggie became known as the fearless sailor among the crew. The sailors, once hesitant to take orders from someone so young, now listened to her words with reverence and respect. She became an advisor to many, especially to the younger sailors who looked up to her as an inspiration. Each conversation Maggie had with them was an opportunity to pass on the teachings of her father and mother, keeping alive the legacy she so cherished. James watched his daughter from afar, proud of her transformation. He knew that soon the day would come when she would fully take command of the ship. One calm night, while they rested under the stars, he turned to Maggie and said, "You have the voice of experience, Maggie, and that's more valuable than any treasure." She smiled, grateful for everything she had learned over the years. For her, carrying her father's knowledge and teachings was a deep honor. The crew also began to see Maggie not only as a leader but as a friend who genuinely cared for each of them. During long journeys, when homesickness set in, Maggie was there to comfort and encourage her shipmates. She knew how to listen like few others, and often, her words were more effective than any command. To the sailors, Maggie was a guiding light amid the vast and uncertain ocean. Maggie continued to devote herself to her studies and reading. Whenever she had a spare moment, she would open the books from the chest and lose herself in their stories and lessons. These words, saved by her mother, seemed to guide her like a beacon shining from within. She understood that in each page lay a piece of her mother's love and wisdom, and this renewed her determination with each reading. As time went on, Maggie felt closer to the day when she would take the reins of the ship on her own. The thought filled her with pride but also responsibility. She knew that leadership required courage and sacrifices, but she was ready to face whatever came her way, guided by her father's example and her mother's wisdom in every decision she made. During a stop at a small port in Florida, Maggie experienced something new, the feel of solid ground beneath her feet. She stepped off the ship and felt the steady earth, an unusual yet refreshing sensation. As she walked along the cobblestone streets, Maggie noticed the houses, the people, and the scents of flowers carried by the wind. For a moment, she felt an intense curiosity about life on land and the experiences it might offer. Upon discovering a small bookstore near the port, Maggie wandered inside, marveling at the many books and stories surrounding her. She spent hours browsing the shelves, absorbing tales of the world on land and learning about cultures she had never encountered. She bought a few new books for her chest, excited to share them with her crew. Each book, she knew, carried a piece of adventure, a fresh perspective. When she returned to the ship, James noticed the sparkle in her eyes and smiled. He had always known Maggie would eventually wonder about life off the ship. "The world is vast, Maggie, and you're free to explore it as you wish," he told her. His words comforted her. Though her heart belonged to the sea, she realized that experiences on land would also be a part of her journey. Stories of life ashore, once distant, were now part of her reality. Maggie began to understand that life was made of choices, and that each experience, whether on land or at sea, helped her grow as a person. She decided that whenever possible, she would take the time to explore the world on land, enriching her heart with the lessons it offered. Every time she returned to the ship, she felt even more connected to her floating home. The sea was where she felt most alive, where her spirit flowed freely. But now, as she brought with her tales from distant places, Maggie knew that the ocean wasn't a mere prison of salt water. It was a bridge connecting her to the world. James, who had always been a strong and respected captain, was starting to feel the weight of his years. He knew the time had come to hand over the helm to Maggie and trust in her ability to lead. On a calm night under the stars, he called her for a serious talk. "Maggie, it's time for you to take command of the ship," he said, with a look that combined pride and nostalgia. For Maggie, his words stirred a mix of joy and responsibility. She had always known this moment would come, but now, hearing it from her father, she fully understood what it meant to be a captain. James continued, "You have everything you need to lead. Follow your heart and remember the lessons you've learned here." With a confident smile, Maggie accepted the challenge, knowing she was ready to assume her place in command. The crew received the news with applause and excitement. To them, Maggie had already been a leader for some time. The sailors knew she carried the spirit of James and the wisdom of her mother and were ready to follow her wherever she led. Maggie felt grateful for each one of them, and she knew that her first decision as captain would be to honor her father's hard work and the dedication of every sailor by her side. That night, as she looked out at the horizon, Maggie reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Each challenge, storm, and lesson had prepared her for this. She knew the future would bring new difficulties, but now she had a certainty she had never felt before. She was ready to face whatever the sea would bring. James said goodbye to the crew the next day, handing command of the ship to Maggie. He stepped off the ship for the last time, confident that his legacy was safe in his daughter's hands. As the ship pulled away, Maggie looked back and waved, sure that, in some way, her father's spirit would continue to guide her on every journey. Upon assuming command, Maggie felt a new strength pulse within her. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but every piece of her experience and learning was about to be tested. The crew followed her with trust, and Maggie reciprocated with respect and dedication, always reminding herself that a good captain leads with the heart. Maggie's first journey as captain took them into unknown waters. With each decision, she recalled her father's lessons and the tiger's eye he had taught her. When challenges arose, Maggie didn't hesitate to take responsibility and lead her crew with courage. The sea felt more vast and daunting than ever, but she knew she was up to the role. One quiet night, Maggie reflected on the weight of command. She missed her father, but she also knew he had given her everything she needed to navigate alone. As she gazed at the horizon, she felt that, despite its relentlessness, the sea was her true home. With her crew beside her, Maggie felt confident she was on the right path. At the end of the first journey, when they returned to port, the crew celebrated the success of their new captain. Maggie felt a deep sense of pride, but also humility as she realized that leading was a privilege, an act of service to those who followed her. She knew that a true captain's test was in earning her crew's trust, and in that moment, she had succeeded. And so, Maggie continued her journey as captain, with the tiger's eye and the determination she had inherited from her parents. The sea was vast and full of mysteries, but she was ready to conquer it, guided by her love for the ocean and her desire to be a leader who would inspire her crew. During an expedition to the Caribbean, Maggie and her crew anchored in a bustling port. There, the young captain crossed paths with Noah, an experienced sailor with a spirit of adventure that immediately intrigued her. Known for his command skill and generous heart, Noah quickly caught Maggie's attention. Amid the sounds of the tides and the chatter of sailors, the two began to talk, and Noah seemed to share Maggie's same passion and respect for the sea. Days went by, and Maggie and Noah began to share stories of their journeys and lessons learned at sea. Noah fascinated her with tales of far-off lands, lost islands, and exotic ports. In turn, Maggie recounted her life on the ship from childhood and the impact of her parents' teachings. Noah listened intently, showing a deep understanding of what it meant to live by the ocean. One night, while walking along the beach under the stars, Noah confessed that while he loved the sea, he often felt lonely on his voyages. Maggie felt an immediate empathy, as she understood how the sea could be vast and yet isolating. Their connection deepened with every conversation, and Maggie realized that Noah wasn't just an adventurer but someone who valued unity and trust within the crew. As the days passed, they began to consider the possibility of sailing together, combining their strengths and knowledge. Noah admired Maggie's steady and caring leadership, and she felt he could be a reliable partner on her journey. So, they decided to set sail together on a new expedition, merging their crews and sharing the secrets of the ocean. As they boarded side by side, Maggie felt this journey would hold special meaning. Noah brought a refreshing presence to the deck, and the crew, who already admired their captain, felt even more inspired. With Noah aboard, Maggie knew she was about to embark on a new chapter of her life, a journey marked by unity and the promise of discovering together all that the sea still had to offer. The partnership between Maggie and Noah transformed the ship's dynamic. Together, they combined their skills and experiences to face the ocean's challenges. Noah, with his keen eye for winds and currents, complemented Maggie's tiger's eye, which enabled her to foresee issues before they arose. The crew quickly realized that, together, Maggie and Noah were unstoppable. During one expedition far out at sea, they faced a storm that tested their limits. The waves rose like walls, and the sky seemed to merge with the ocean in a symphony of thunder and gales. Maggie, standing beside Noah, guided the crew with a calm that masked her nerves. She knew that with Noah by her side, she was stronger than ever. Each command given was like a silent promise of mutual protection, and together, they managed to keep the ship steady. After the storm, when the sea finally calmed, Maggie and Noah exchanged a look of exhaustion and gratitude. It was as though, in that moment, they had passed a final test that had bonded them inseparably. Their partnership was not just professional. It was a connection of trust and friendship that only the sea could forge. Both felt that, together, they could face any challenge ahead. Over time, Noah began sharing more of his aspirations and dreams. He spoke about building a life at sea and his desire to pass his knowledge on to future generations. Maggie listened closely, reflecting on her own dreams and the impact she wanted to leave behind. Their connection deepened with every voyage, and Maggie felt that she had found someone with whom to share her heart. The crew noticed the special light in Maggie's eyes, and the bond between them strengthened the spirit on board. Each sailor felt that the ship, now led by two souls united by the sea, was safer than ever. Maggie knew she had found in Noah not only a sailing partner but someone with whom she could dream and build a future. One afternoon, in a calm stretch of ocean, Maggie decided to open her mother's chest and share its contents with Noah. They sat on the deck while the crew went about their tasks, and Maggie opened the chest with a mix of reverence and nostalgia. Inside were books, diaries, letters, and songs her mother had left, valuable memories that had guided her since childhood. Noah was fascinated by the carefully preserved treasure. He leafed through a few of the books, appreciating the love and dedication Maggie put into each page. Reading through Maggie's mother's journal was especially moving. The words expressed a deep love for her daughter and the sea. Noah felt the weight of the inheritance Maggie carried, a legacy measured not in gold, but in wisdom and love. Maggie explained what each book meant to her and how the lessons within had shaped her character and leadership. Noah listened attentively, understanding that the chest was more than just an artifact. It was a bond between Maggie and her parents, one that made her a uniquely attentive leader. He felt honored to be part of such an intimate, precious moment and vowed to protect that legacy as she did. By the end of their reading, Maggie and Noah decided it was time to share this treasure with the crew. Each sailor would have the chance to learn from the lessons her mother had left, strengthening their journeys through her wisdom. For Maggie, knowledge had little value if it wasn't shared, and she knew the true treasure was in transforming lives through what she had learned. The crew received the books with a quiet respect, and as Maggie saw each one absorbed in their reading, she felt an indescribable peace. Her mother's legacy was not only a gift for her, but for all who were willing to learn. And as the waves rocked the ship, Maggie felt her path clearer than ever. On a journey to a distant port, Maggie was surprised to encounter an old rival of her father, Captain Rourke, a man feared across the seas for his hard nature. Rourke approached her with disdain, doubting her abilities as both young and a woman. His taunt ignited a silent yet fierce determination in Maggie. She knew her father had taught her to respect all, but in that moment, she realized she needed to defend her place on the sea. Noah watched from afar, ready to intervene, but he saw that Maggie was in control. Without losing her composure, she challenged Rourke to a sailing competition, proving her skills couldn't be underestimated. Rourke accepted with a sneering smile, convinced he'd win easily. But Maggie knew her experience and her tiger's eye would give her an edge. On the day of the race, Maggie led her crew with mastery. She knew how to use every detail of the wind and currents to her advantage. Seeing her flawless performance, Rourke realized he had misjudged her. When she crossed the finish line, she was met with applause, while Rourke, defeated, acknowledged Maggie's talent and courage. The victory wasn't just a triumph over Rourke. It was proof she had become a complete captain, able to lead and win any challenge. Maggie realized her strength came not only from the sea but also from the legacy of her parents, the lessons she carried, and her trust in herself. With Rourke's respect and the admiration of the maritime community won, Maggie knew she was ready for any challenge. Noah, watching with pride, knew he had found in Maggie a true partner of spirit and courage. Together, they could conquer whatever the sea might offer. Over the years, Maggie and Noah started a family on board the ship. Their children grew up learning about the sea and the values of honesty, courage, and teamwork. The crew, now a true family, helped raise the children with care, teaching them the importance of respect and dedication. Each sailor became a significant figure in their lives, passing down the lessons they had learned through their travels. Now an experienced mother and leader, Maggie felt a deep joy seeing the next generation grow with the same principles her parents had taught her. Life at sea continued with its same intensity, but it was now marked by a deeper love. Maggie knew her mission was to prepare her children to be future leaders, sailors who would continue the story of courage and wisdom she had inherited. Her mother's chest remained on the ship, now accessible to all who wished to learn. The children listened to the stories from the logbooks, learning about their grandmother's bravery and their grandfather's legacy. Maggie felt that with each new generation, her family's spirit and teachings grew stronger. Maggie and Noah continued to lead the ship together, creating a true legend across the seas. And as they sailed toward the horizon, she knew she was building a future where love for the ocean and knowledge would live on. The sea still called to her, and Maggie answered with a light heart and a peaceful soul, knowing her legacy was safe in the hands of those she loved. As Maggie's story came to a close, she understood that her life at sea would always be remembered, not for the storms she faced, but for her ability to inspire and transform lives. Her name would be told for generations among sailors, and the spirit of Captain Maggie would live on, forever sailing in the waters of her immortal journey. The journey of Maggie, the young captain, was marked by moments of loss, learning, and, above all, love for the sea and the life she built there. Over time, she discovered that the true legacy wasn't just navigating unknown waters, but inspiring and teaching those who followed her. Her mother's books and journals, preserved with care, weren't just memories. They were seeds of wisdom that Maggie generously shared, helping her crew grow and strengthen their spirits. With Noah by her side and her family growing on board, Maggie built a future based on the values her parents had taught her. In every voyage, in each lesson passed down, she honored the past, creating a tradition of knowledge and leadership that would endure for generations. As she stepped away from command to live in peace alongside her family, Maggie knew she left a powerful legacy, an unbreakable love for the sea, and a profound mark on the hearts of every sailor lucky enough to sail with her. Maggie's story reminds us that the true treasure lies in sharing knowledge, inspiring courage in others, and leading with the heart. Her spirit will live on in the tales told, in the stars that guide sailors, and in the waves that forever carry the echo of her lessons. If you, like Maggie, seek inspiration and courage to transform your own life through learning and unity with those you love, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Here, we continue to explore powerful stories and timeless lessons, bringing the depth of the sea and the power of experience into your daily life. Join us on this journey of discovery, and let each story be an anchor for your growth and a beacon of inspiration on your path.